We laughed when the human said she didn't need weapons. 42 seconds later, we realized humans are the weapons. Look, I have seen a lot of stupid decisions in my 3 decades of service at the Galactic Combat Academy. I have watched Vorgian cadets try to breathe underwater. I have seen Quilnari attempt to fly without wings. I have even witnessed a Tremlaw cadet challenge a gravity well to single combat. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for the day a human walked through our doors and claimed she did not need weapons. My name is Tarvik Moss, Senior Combat Observer for the Academy. And before you ask, yes, I am a Kelleran. That means I have 4 arms, natural bone plating across my chest, and enough combat experience to know when someone is about to make a fatal mistake. The Academy sits on Nexus Prime, a neutral world where the galaxy's finest come to learn the art of war. Well, finest is a generous term. Mostly, we get the second sons, the ambitious daughters, and the occasional lunatic who thinks they can punch their way through a blast door. The rules here are simple, really. No energy weapons inside the training halls. No projectile firearms. No explosives. No plasma cutters. No molecular disruptors. And absolutely, positively, no gravitational manipulation devices. Why? Because some idiot from the Turvan Collective once brought a pocket singularity generator to class and nearly swallowed half the Eastern Wing. The Academy rebuilt, the lawsuit settled, and Command instituted the no-weapons policy faster than you can say catastrophic insurance premiums. Now, here is where it gets interesting. See, the policy bans manufactured weapons, but it says nothing about natural ones, and let me tell you, the galaxy is full of species that come preloaded with enough built-in armament to make a weapons dealer weep with envy. Take the Krellians for instance, 7 feet tall, covered in chitinous armor plates that can deflect small arms fire, and sporting retractable bone claws that could gut a cargo hauler, or the Suthran, those scaled beauties with venom glands that can drop a Quilnari bull in 8 seconds flat. The Horthak bring crystalline spikes that grow from their forearms. The Vexen have prehensile tails tipped with paralytic barbs. You get the idea. The Academy is not so much a level playing field as it is a showcase of evolutionary one-upmanship. Every species brings their A-game, their biological advantages, their millions of years of adaptation to hostile environments. Combat training here means learning to leverage what nature gave you, to maximize your inherent advantages, to dominate through superior genetics. Which brings me to the human. She arrived on a Tuesday, because of course she did. Tuesdays are always when the weird stuff happens. Her name was Kira Bennett, and she looked like someone had taken the concept of average and made it boring. 5.5 feet tall, maybe. Brown hair pulled back in something called a ponytail. No visible armor plating. No claws. No fangs. No venom glands. No spikes. No scales. No natural weapons whatsoever. She wore the standard Academy jumpsuit in gray, carried a datapad, and had the kind of unremarkable appearance that made you forget she was in the room. The other cadets noticed her immediately, which is to say, they noticed her complete lack of anything interesting. Grask, a Krellian built like a tank, had a baby with a fortress, actually laughed when she walked into the assembly hall. They are letting mammals without defenses into the Academy now. What next, prey species? Beside him, a Scytheran named Valera flicked her forked tongue in amusement. Look at her. No claws, no armor, no natural toxins. How did she even survive to adulthood on her world? Kira did not react. She found a seat near the back, pulled out her datapad and started reading. The other cadets lost interest quickly. After all, what threat could she possibly pose? Instructor Thane, a grizzled Horthak veteran with more scars than functional limbs, stood at the front of the hall and activated the holo display. Welcome to Week 4, cadets. By now you have all familiarized yourselves with Academy regulations. Today we begin practical combat assessments. You will face opponents of varying species, weight classes, and combat styles. The objective is simple: demonstrate your ability to neutralize threats using your natural capabilities. He paused, his crystalline spikes catching the light. The challenge system is now active. Any cadet may challenge another to sanctioned combat. Victory earns points toward your final ranking. Defeat teaches humility. Permanent injury results in expulsion and a very disappointed letter to your homeworld. Try not to die. The paperwork is excessive. Around the hall, cadets sized each other up. The Krellians flexed their claws. The Sathrin checked their venom glands. The Vexen swished their tails. Everyone calculating advantages, identifying easy targets, planning their path to glory. And in the back, Kira Bennett kept reading her datapad, completely unbothered by the predatory energy filling the room. I watched her carefully. Something about her stillness bothered me. Prey freezes when threatened. Predators go still when hunting. I had a sinking feeling I knew which one she was. Instructor Thane pulled up a holographic representation of a generic bipedal species, all glowing blue lines and rotating anatomical markers, combat fundamentals, he began, his voice carrying that particular tone of someone who has given this lecture approximately 8,000 times, are built on three principles: offense, defense, and adaptability. Your species has gifted you with natural tools. The question is, can you use them effectively? He gestured, and the hologram shifted to show a Krellian anatomy. Take Grask here. Bone plating, retractable claws, superior strength-to-weight ratio. Natural offense and defense in one package. Stand up, Grask. The massive Krellian rose from his seat, and I swear the floor tiles cracked under his weight. He extended his claws with a sound like swords being drawn, each one easily 6 inches of serrated bone that gleamed under the hall lights. The other cadets murmured appreciatively. Showa. Excellent natural weapons, Thane continued. Now, Valera, demonstrate please. The Scythran female stood gracefully, her scales shimmering green and gold. She opened her mouth, and her fangs extended from their sheaths, dripping with a clear substance that hissed when it hit the floor. A small wisp of smoke rose from the droplet. Neurotoxin, she said, her voice carrying that slight sibilant quality her species was known for. Paralysis in 15 seconds, unconsciousness in 30, death in 3 minutes without treatment. Terrifying and efficient, Thane agreed. Vexen cadets, your turn. 3 Vexen stood in unison, their tails raised high, the barbed tips glistening with their own brand of chemical warfare. One of them, a male named Court, grinned with too many teeth. Paralytic agent. Instructor. Non-lethal, but our prey stays down for hours. Perfect for capture scenarios. Thane nodded. Each of you brings millions of years of evolutionary warfare to this academy. Your ancestors survived because they were armed, dangerous, and adaptable. You are the current iteration of that success. From the back of the room, Grask's voice boomed out. What about the human? What did her species bring? The ability to sit quietly and hope nobody notices. Laughter rippled through the assembly hall. Even some of the more diplomatic species cracked smiles. Kira did not look up from her data pad. I watched her carefully. Her heart rate had not changed. Her posture remained relaxed. Either she had nerves of steel or she genuinely did not care about being mocked by a walking siege weapon. Humans, Thane said slowly, pulling up their species profile on the holo display, are classified as Class 7 Death World survivors. Their planet Earth is considered marginally hostile by galactic standards. Marginally hostile, Valera repeated, amusement clear in her voice. My homeworld has acid rainstorms and predators in every shadow. Theirs has what, bad weather? And they do not even have claws, Court added. Look at those appendages. Flat nails, soft skin, no natural armor whatsoever. They are basically walking targets. Thane's spikes rattled slightly, which I recognized as his species equivalent of a Psi. Nevertheless, they meet minimum physical requirements for academy admission. Moving on. First sparring sessions begin in 10 minutes. The combat rings are prepared. Who wishes to volunteer for the opening demonstration? Grask stood immediately, his bulk casting a shadow across half the room. I volunteer, Instructor. I wish to establish proper dominance hierarchy early. Acceptable. Opponent. This was the moment I expected silence. Grask was not just large. He was championship-level large. His clan had produced 3 galactic combat champions in the last century alone. Challenging him in Week 4 was essentially volunteering for a medical bed and a damaged ego. Kira Bennett closed her data pad. The click echoed in the suddenly quiet hall. I will fight him, she said, her voice completely calm, almost conversational, like she had just volunteered to help carry supplies, not face off against a biological war machine. The silence stretched for approximately 3 seconds before the hall erupted in laughter. Grask's booming guffaws led the chorus, soon joined by Valera's hissing chuckles and Court's barking laughs. Even Thane's spikes rattled in what might have been amusement. The human volunteers, Grask managed between laughs. "Oh, this is perfect. This is absolutely perfect. I promise to make it quick, little mammal. You will barely feel the humiliation." Kira stood and walked down the aisle toward the combat rings. Every eye in the hall followed her. She moved with an easy, efficient gait, no wasted motion, no hesitation. Up close, she looked even less impressive. Her arms were thin compared to Grask's trunk-like limbs, her hands looked soft, delicate almost. She had no visible muscle mass to speak of, no threatening features, nothing that suggested she could survive 10 seconds against a Krellian warrior. "Instructor," Valera called out, genuine concern creeping into her voice. "Should we not have medical standing by? I know humans are fragile. Their bones break easily. Medical is always on standby," Thane replied, but I caught the slight hesitation in his voice. He was wondering the same thing I was. Had this human simply not understood what she was volunteering for? Kira stepped into Ring 1, a circular platform 20 meters in diameter, surrounded by energy barriers designed to contain the fight and protect spectators from stray claws, venom, or flying body parts. Grask lumbered in after her, his claws already extended, his bone plating gleaming. The size difference was almost comical. Grask had to outweigh her by at least 300 pounds. His reach was twice hers. His armor could probably deflect small explosives. And Kira Bennett just stood there, hands at her sides, weight balanced evenly on both feet, watching him with dark eyes that reflected the ring lights like a predator's might. "Ready positions," Thane announced. "Standard combat rules apply. Fight ends at submission, incapacitation, or my command. Lethal force is prohibited. Begin on my mark." Grask cracked his neck, a sound like breaking stone. "Any last words, human?" Kira smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Yeah. Humans do not need weapons." The hall went silent. Thane's hand dropped. "Begin." "All right, let me set the scene properly here, because what happened next fundamentally changed how I viewed an entire species, and I have been doing this job for 30 years. I have seen every kind of combat style the galaxy has to offer. I have watched Horthak crystal fighters dance through opponents like living blenders. I have seen Sathran assassins drop targets before they even knew they were in danger. I have observed Krellian champions tear through reinforced barriers with their bare claws, but I had never seen anything like what Kira Bennett did in that ring. Pre-fight assessment, by the numbers. Grask stood 7 feet 2 inches tall, weighed approximately 430 pounds, and possessed bone plating rated to withstand impacts up to 3,000 pounds per square inch. His claws could punch through standard hull plating. His reaction time, while not spectacular by galactic standards, was perfectly adequate for his size class. He had reach, strength, natural armor, and natural weapons. Every possible advantage. Kira Bennett, 5 feet 6 inches, maybe 140 pounds soaking wet, no armor, no claws, no venom, no scales, no spikes, no natural defenses whatsoever. Soft skin that could be punctured by basically anything sharp, bones that could break under sufficient pressure. By every measurable metric, she should not have lasted 5 seconds. The moment Thane's hand dropped, Grask charged. Not a careful advance, not a tactical approach, but a full-on bull rush designed to use his mass advantage to simply flatten her. 300 pounds of armored Krellian moving at surprising speed, claws extended, ready to end this embarrassing mismatch in one devastating tackle. Kira moved. Not away. Sideways. A blur of motion so fast my eye stalks actually twitched trying to track it. One moment she was directly in Grask's path, the next she was simply not there. Then Grask's momentum carried him past where she had been standing, his claws swiping through empty air. The hall went quiet. That kind of quiet where everyone collectively holds their breath. Grask spun, faster than something his size should move, claws raised for a follow-up strike. Kira was already inside his guard. Inside, where his reach advantage meant nothing, where his claws could not angle properly, where his bone plating had gaps for joint mobility. She struck his elbow, not with a closed fist but with the base of her palm hitting the joint from the side with precise force. Grask's arm buckled. Not broke, not dislocated, just buckled, the joint momentarily refusing to cooperate. His claws retracted involuntarily, a reflex response to sudden nerve disruption. "What?" Grask managed, confusion clear in his voice. Kira did not answer. She was already moving again, ducking under his other arm, her hand shooting out to strike the back of his knee with her knuckles. Again, precise, targeted, hitting something specific. Grask's leg folded, and suddenly the massive Krellian was off balance, his weight shifting forward. That was when I started to understand. She was not trying to overpower him. She was not trying to match his strength. She was attacking his structure, his balance, the mechanical weaknesses that every bipedal organism shares regardless of armor or size. Joints, leverage points, center of gravity. Grask roared, a sound that rattled the energy barriers, and swung both arms in a wide arc, meant to catch her regardless of where she dodged. Except she did not dodge. She dropped low below the swing, and her legs swept out in a precise arc that hooked behind Grask's already compromised knee. Physics took over. 430 pounds of Krellian warrior, off balance, with one leg swept out from under him, went down hard. The ring platform actually shook from the impact. Grask hit face first, his bone plating producing a sound like a gong being struck. The hall was silent except for Grask's labored breathing. He tried to push himself up, but Kira was already on his back, one knee pressed into his spine, one hand gripping his arm and twisting it at an angle that made even me wince. Not breaking it, just applying pressure to the shoulder joint, controlling the limb. "Tap out," she said quietly. Not gloating, not angry, just stating a fact. Grask tried to rise, his other arm pushing against the platform, his pride clearly overriding his common sense. Kira shifted her weight, pressed harder on the joint, and I saw Grask's eyes widen as he realized she could dislocate his shoulder with minimal effort. His own strength, his own mass was working against him. Every attempt to rise just gave her more leverage. His free hand slapped the platform 3 times. Submission. Kira released him immediately, stepped back and offered her hand to help him up. Grask stared at that hand like it might bite him. After a long moment he took it, and she actually helped haul his massive bulk to standing. The size difference made it almost absurd. This small human helping a Krellian to his feet, except it was not absurd at all anymore. Thane's voice cut through the stunned silence. "Winner, Cadet Bennett. Time 42 seconds. 42 seconds." She had dropped a champion lineage Krellian in less than a minute, without claws, without armor, without venom, without any natural weapons whatsoever. Just knowledge, speed and precision. Grask stood in the ring, looking at his own hands like they had betrayed him. "How?" he finally asked, his voice smaller than I had ever heard from a Krellian. "How did you do that? You have no claws, no armor, no natural weapons." Kira finished for him, that same slight smile on her face. "That is what you all keep saying, but see, here is the thing about humans. We evolved on a planet where everything was trying to kill us. Everything. The predators, the weather, the bacteria, even the plants sometimes. We were not the biggest, not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most venomous. We did not have claws or fangs or armor." She paused, looking around the hall at the watching cadets, at all their natural weapons and evolutionary advantages. "So we got good at breaking things that did. We got very, very good at it. We learned every weak point, every leverage advantage, every way to make physics work for us instead of against us. We learned to fight everything, anything, with just these." She held up her hands, soft and seemingly harmless. "And after millions of years of practice," she continued, "we learned that the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy is not claws or venom or armor. It is pattern recognition, adaptability, and the absolute refusal to quit. Those are our natural weapons, and they work just fine." Valera's tongue flicked nervously. Court's tail had stopped swishing. Around the hall, cadets who had been laughing minutes ago were now very, very quiet. Grask nodded slowly, respect clear in his eyes. "I will not underestimate your species again." "Good," Kira said, "because I am not even close to the scariest human you will ever meet." And that, right there, was when I realized the galaxy might have severely miscalculated what Class 7 Deathworld survivors were actually capable of. You know what happens when you publicly defeat the biggest, scariest predator in the room. Every other predator suddenly wants to prove they are different. that their advantages will succeed where brute strength failed. Pride is apparently a universal constant across species. The Lyra was first. The Sathran stepped into the ring with her scales gleaming, confidence radiating from every movement. "You defeated strength," she said, her forked tongue tasting the air. "Let us see how you handle speed and venom." Thane raised an eyebrow but allowed it. I think he was curious too. We all were. The fight lasted 1 minute and 18 seconds. The Lyra was fast, I will give her that. Her strikes came like lightning, her fangs extending and retracting in patterns designed to herd prey into position. But Kira was not prey. She read the Lyra's attack patterns like they were written in textbooks, dodging by millimeters, never wasting energy on excessive movement. When the Lyra committed to a strike overextending just slightly, Kira caught her arm, redirected the momentum, and used a joint lock that had the Sathran hissing in pain and tapping out within seconds. "Pattern recognition," Kira said, as she helped the Lyra up. "Humans are exceptionally good at it. Your strikes were fast, but they followed a rhythm. Once I saw the pattern, I just had to wait for the opening." Court volunteered next, along with 2 other Vexen. 3-on-1, he announced. "Surely your pattern recognition cannot track multiple opponents simultaneously." Thane should have stopped it. 3-against-1 violated standard protocol. But he glanced at Kira, saw her nod of acceptance, and allowed it. I think we were all starting to wonder just what her limits actually were. That fight lasted 3 minutes and 47 seconds, and it was brutal. The Vexen came from 3 angles, their tails striking in coordinated patterns, trying to overwhelm through numbers and synchronized attacks. Kira moved like water flowing between them, using their own positioning against them. When one struck, she would shift so another was in the way, forcing them to abort or risk hitting their teammate. She separated them, isolated them, took them down one at a time, using their tails as convenient handles for throws and leverage. All 3 Vexen tapped out. Court was the last, dangling upside down from where Kira had somehow used his own tail to suspend him in a submission hold. "How?" he gasped. "Adaptability," Kira answered, lowering him down carefully. "Humans can adjust tactics mid-fight. We process new information constantly, update our strategies, exploit weaknesses as they appear. Your coordination was good, but you all used the same basic attack pattern. Once I understood it, scaling from 1 to 3 was just a processing problem." A Horthak cadet named Dren entered the ring next. He was older, more experienced, covered in scars that spoke of survived battles. "I have fought for 20 cycles," he growled. "I do not rely on patterns. I adapt, I change, I survive." That fight went on for 7 minutes. 7 long, grueling minutes where Dren tried everything. He mixed up his attacks, changed rhythms, used feints and misdirection. He was genuinely skilled, probably the best pure fighter in the entire cadet class. But as the minutes ticked by, I started to notice something. Dren was breathing hard, his movements slowing, his crystalline spikes dulling slightly from exertion. Kira looked exactly the same as when she started. Her breathing was elevated but controlled, her movements still precise, still efficient. She was not trying to finish him quickly. She was outlasting him. At the 7-minute mark, Dren's guard dropped half a second too slow. Kira swept in, executed a throw that sent him tumbling, and had him in a lock before he could recover. He tapped immediately, too exhausted to continue. "Endurance," she said, not even winded. "Humans have the best stamina to body weight ratio of almost any species our size. We evolved to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Hours, sometimes days. We just do not stop." Thane finally stepped forward, his spikes rattling with what I now recognized as concern. "Cadet Bennett, you have made your point. 5 consecutive victories is sufficient demonstration." "6, called a voice from the crowd, a tremlock, all muscle and armor plating. "I challenge." 7, added another, a species I did not immediately recognize covered in crystalline growths. Kira looked at Thane, who sighed, his spikes drooping. "1 more," he said. "Then we break for analysis." The tremlock lasted 4 minutes, the crystalline species, 2.5. Both fell to the same fundamental problem. They had natural weapons, natural advantages, millions of years of evolutionary specialization. Kira had millions of years of learning to fight everything, and the capacity to keep learning mid-battle. By the time Thane called a halt, Kira had faced 7 opponents and won 7 times. She stood in the center of the ring, finally showing signs of fatigue, sweat dampening her hair, but still standing, still ready. "Enough," Thane commanded. "Cadet Bennett, explain. Your species clearly possesses combat capabilities beyond your physical appearance. What am I missing?" Kira took a drink from a water container, catching her breath. "Instructor, how long has your species been using weapons?" "Approximately 40,000 standard cycles," Thane replied, "since we developed metallurgy." "The Krellians?" Grask spoke up from where he sat, still nursing his pride. 60,000 cycles, since we learned to shape our own bone growths into tools," Kira nodded. "Humans have been using weapons for 2.5 million years. Rocks, sticks, bones, whatever we could find. We have been fighting wars for at least 10,000 years. Organized, strategic, brutal wars where we learned to kill each other with increasing efficiency. We studied anatomy, physics, leverage, weak points, not just for hunting animals, but for fighting other humans." She looked around the hall, meeting eyes with every species present. "Every natural weapon you have, we faced something similar on Earth, and learned to counter it. Claws, we fought bears and big cats. Venom, snakes and spiders. Armor, we fought armored mammals and reptiles. Size advantage, we took down creatures 50 times our mass. We have been the underdog for our entire evolutionary history, and we survived by being smarter, more adaptable, and too stubborn to die." The hall was absolutely silent. Even the usual background noise of cadets shifting and breathing seemed muted. "We do not have natural weapons," Kira continued, "because we are the weapon. Our brains, our pattern recognition, our endurance, our adaptability, our absolute refusal to accept defeat. That is what millions of years of evolution on a death world created. We do not need claws, Instructor." She smiled, tired but satisfied. "We have something better. We have experience fighting everything that does. I have been in the combat observation business for 3 decades, and I thought I understood predators. I thought I knew what made a species dangerous, what separated the prey from the hunters, what determined who survived and who became a footnote in evolutionary history. Turns out I did not know anything at all. Here is what I have learned. There are 2 kinds of predators in the galaxy. There are ambush predators, like the Scythran, who strike fast and rely on venom to do the work. There are pursuit predators, like the Vexen, who use pack tactics and coordinated strikes. There are power predators, like the Krellians, who simply overpower their targets through superior strength and armor. Every species fits into a category, a niche, a specialized role carved out by millions of years of evolution. And then there are humans. They do not fit into any category because they fit into all of them. They are ambush predators when they need to be, pursuit predators when the situation calls for it, power predators when they have the advantage. They are not specialized. They are generalized to a degree that should not be possible, should not work, should have resulted in evolutionary dead ends instead of apex predators. But it did work. Oh, how it worked. The Academy Council convened an emergency session that evening. Thane presented his observations, played back recordings of the fights, and basically told a room full of military strategists that we had fundamentally misunderstood an entire classification of species. Deathworlders, we called them. Class 7 survivors from marginally hostile environments. We thought that meant they were tough, resilient, maybe a bit scrappy. We were wrong. Deathworlders were not just survivors. They were weapons forged in environments so hostile, so unrelenting, that everything soft got burned away, leaving only the most dangerous aspects. Humans were not the strongest species, not the fastest, not the most venomous or armored. They were something worse. They were the most adaptable, the most persistent, the most capable of learning and applying lessons from every fight, every encounter, every failure. You cannot outlast them because they have better endurance. You cannot outthink them because they recognize patterns faster. You cannot overpower them because they know every weak point in your structure. You cannot surprise them because they have fought worse. And you absolutely cannot intimidate them because they come from a planet where everything was designed to kill them, and they still made it to the top of the food chain. The next morning, Kira stood before the assembled cadets at Thane's request. The hall was packed. Word had spread, Even cadets from advanced classes had shown up to see the human who had defeated 7 opponents in a row without a scratch. "Cadet Bennett," Thane began, his tone respectful now, not dismissive. "The Council has requested you provide context for your species' combat capabilities. Specifically, they wish to understand how a species without natural weapons achieved such proficiency." Kira stood at ease, comfortable with the attention in a way that prey species never were. "Sure. So, Earth is what you classify as Class 7 marginally hostile. That is technically accurate but wildly misleading. Our planet has produced at least 5 mass extinction events: asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, ice ages, climate shifts that wiped out 90% of life. Humanity evolved during the most recent ice age when resources were scarce, predators were everywhere, and survival meant being smarter than everything trying to eat you." She paused, looking around the hall. "We were not the strongest ape species. Neanderthals were stronger, more robust, better adapted to cold. But we outlasted them because we could throw better, plan better, cooperate better. We hunted mammoths, creatures that weighed 6 tons using pointed sticks and teamwork. We fought cave bears, saber-toothed cats, dire wolves, all of them bigger and more naturally armed than us. We won because we learned from every encounter and never gave up." Grask spoke up, his voice thoughtful. "You said yesterday you are not the scariest human. What did you mean?" Kira actually laughed. "I am an academy cadet. I have basic training, maybe 5 years of martial arts, standard fitness. Back on Earth we have special forces operators who train for decades, who have survived actual combat, who have refined human fighting techniques to an art form. We have athletes who can run 100 kilometers without stopping. We have fighters who study nothing but combat their entire lives. I am average by human military standards." The hall absorbed that in silence. Average. She was average. The Galactic Council classified humans as non-threatening based on lack of natural weapons. Valera said slowly. "That assessment was incorrect." "Very incorrect," Thane agreed, his spikes rattling in what I now recognized as embarrassment. "Cadet Bennett, the Council has asked me to extend an invitation. They wish to establish formal combat training exchanges with Earth, human instructors teaching galactic forces, and vice versa." Kira nodded. "I think Earth would be interested. We like learning new fighting styles. It is kind of our thing." Court raised a claw hesitantly. "Will you continue sparring with us? I wish to learn your techniques." "Me as well," Grask added. "Fighting you taught me more in 42 seconds than I learned in 42 days before." Around the hall, other cadets voiced agreement. The mocking tone from yesterday was gone, replaced by genuine respect, even awe. They had learned what I learned, that the most dangerous predator is not the one with the biggest claws or the deadliest venom. It is the one that learns from every fight, adapts to every situation, and never stops coming. Kira smiled. "Happy to spar with anyone who wants to. That is how humans get better. We fight, we learn, we improve." Thane dismissed the assembly, and as cadets filed out, I watched them give Kira a wide berth. Not from fear exactly, but from newfound weariness. Respect earned through demonstration, not declaration. The human way, apparently. I approached her, as she gathered her things. "Cadet Bennett, off the record, how many humans are there?" "About 11 billion at last count," she replied. 11 billion. 11 billion apex predators, each one capable of learning, adapting and fighting with the accumulated knowledge of millions of years of survival. The galaxy had welcomed humanity as another species, another voice in the galactic community. We should have been more careful. We should have asked more questions. We should have understood that a species does not colonize a death world and thrive without becoming something extraordinary, something dangerous, something that does not need claws or venom or armor to be a threat. Because humans do not need weapons, they are weapons. Every single one of them, forged in the most hostile environment imaginable, tempered by millions of years of fighting everything their planet threw at them, sharpened by 10,000 years of organized warfare against each other. The instructor said no weapons in the academy. Kira Bennett proved that did not matter. When your entire species is a weapon, rules about what you can bring into the ring become somewhat irrelevant. And that is the lesson the Galactic Combat Academy learned that day. Never ever underestimate a species just because they look harmless, especially if they come from a death world, especially if they are humans, because humans do not need weapons. They never did, and that is exactly what makes them so terrifying.